Today is December 5th, 2021, the last monthly update for the 2021 year. Good morning, Craig, or evening, or whatever time it is. It's hard to tell. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you, Jay?
It's funny, when I record my other show with Hunter, I always get the feeling like he throws me off, like he does stuff to throw me off. And I feel like in a much more subdued way, like that's how you feel about me.
No, I just have bad thoughts. Or not bad thoughts. I just have thoughts that come into my mind for some of the things that you say.
Anyway, moving on.
If you were an Office fan, you might get it. But
I am an Office fan. Well, wait, the movie, the British version or the American version?
the American version.
Okay. The movie is my personal preference, but I do enjoy the American version also.
I love the movie. I've seen that several times. But there was just something that you said, and what popped in my mind is that's what she said.
That would not have been that. Our version of bad thoughts are very different. So Craig, it's the first episode of the month. The Microsoft Teams team has released their Teams team blog. Yes. As we've done the last couple of months, we're doing a quick run through of what came out over the last month. Now, before we get into it, like the elephant in the room is that Microsoft Ignite was last month.
So took a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah, so there was a lot at Ignite, and I don't want to do an Ignite review. If you want to do that, go check out Matt Wade, or AvePoint did one last week, or Microsoft's done there's MVPs all over the world are doing Ignite reviews. But in short, like this Ignite was all about showcasing how AI is improving contextuality of information. And we will get into a little bit of that in relation to some features that came out with Microsoft Loop. But other than that, it was actually a pretty subdued conference, I feel like.
Yeah, there was some interesting stuff that came around the Power Platform, but a lot of that was actually what you might see a little bit of Loop, co-authoring and working together to actually create apps. Because me and my user group, we talked about that a little bit, and there was like 3 announcements on the kind of like, I want to say, took how you would normally work or collaborate in Office, so with Word or PowerPoint, so that you can add notes and have somebody else see it, that you can see who else is in your app as opposed to, like in your document, and then you can click on them, and that would open it right up into a conversation, which is pretty cool. And then there was taking it a step farther and hooking it into GitHub, which is not quite out yet, but being able to kind of do a saving as you go and continuously working and being able to save and not, to have 2 people in there working and saving at the same time, and then having it back-ended by a DevOps type of GitHub thing. So that was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, no, and there were certainly big announcements that come out of it. But if you think back to 2, 3, 4 years ago, where Ignite was once a year, 30,000 people descended down on Orlando or wherever it was, that conference, the number of announcements and the weight of those announcements feels like it was not what we've seen in the past. That's all I was trying to say. That's which.
Yeah, I kind of get that, but I also, to me, it's they've announced a lot continuously over the last year, so it's not like they're saving them up anymore. And for me, it's what I hate is it's the virtual conference. So, which is good because that means everybody from around the world can see it and it's free. But I don't have time during my, if I'm not there and taking the time off, I don't actually I'll catch a session here or there.
Sure.
But I don't have the luxury of blocking a week off of work and then having nobody bother me, because if I'm online, somebody sees me. So, so that's
ironic.
I would like
you're
to
one of the lead organizers of M365 Chicago, a virtual event, but I digress
Yes.
and understand completely.
Well, again,
So,
you know, that's you can do it. It's an hour. It's bite sized. To take the whole conference and see it, that's difficult. So
yeah.
but we
So,
don't all have the cushy job like you, Jay, and can just take the whole week off and do it. But
are you kidding? I didn't get to see a single Ignite thing live this year. Like, it was terrible. I blocked the whole thing off, and I was still in meetings all day.
yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Like I blocked it off too, so I wouldn't have to do it. But as soon as anybody sees, like nobody cares about time anymore. So, which is a totally different subject.
I
The only
will.
people that care are the meetings that I schedule, and I'm doing good with my meetings. So, which is a totally different subject. I have taken a page out of like my managers, and what's coming out of the Viva Insights thing is to getting back some time and relate. So I don't schedule hour meetings anymore. I schedule 45-minute meetings, and I schedule them to start 5 minutes after the hour and 10 minutes before the hour. So
Right.
if you're right there at 11 o'clock, right, and then you get 10 minutes off before noon to get your coffee and whatever before your next meeting, then it seems like my customers like that, especially when I say, okay, now go do whatever before you have to run to your next meeting. Because, so like, yes,
That's fair.
Because there is a next meeting. Everybody's got that next meeting. So, but I digress.
All right. Well, that's actually a really interesting idea. I don't know how I feel about the 5 minutes late thing, but I definitely subscribe to the 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early side, and hopefully that becomes more of a norm. But I digress.
5 minutes late,
an Ignite discussion.
The meeting never starts right on time. Anyways, you're always got that chit chat, and you're always waiting for somebody to join. So, if you do join early, you can just have your water cooler talk. That's how we do it.
True.
So.
Huh. I'll have to think about that.
Let's go back to the announcements. What came out of government?
Yeah, so the government side, again, in the last month was more subdued theme that we just talked about with Ignite. There wasn't a lot, but what I thought was really interesting is 3 of the features announced last month were focused on GCC-High, and 2 of them on DoD, and that's the 25 members per team in GCC-High, the presenter mode and desktop window sharing available in GCC-High and DoD, and the new assignment experience for breakout rooms in GCC-High and DoD. And the reason that was important to me is I was looking back at our notes. Just last month, we announced those things for GCC. So again, seeing a very strong commitment to pushing out features as quickly as possible across the national tenants. And not just being a year, 2 years, 3 years delayed like we had seen previously. So it's really nice to see that commitment. Also, more along the lines of features we've seen recently on the commercial side, the attendance reports in GCC-High are now, the attendance reports for meetings are now available in GCC. And I thought this one was really interesting, mostly because I was just talking to to AvePoint's marketing director in charge of all of our video content, which is that you now have isolated audio feeds in the GCC. So if you're using the NDI capabilities for live streaming your meetings, you actually have the ability to take Craig's audio and Jay's audio. At least that's how I take it. But what's interesting is I didn't realize we could do that in commercial. So I need to play with that more to see how I missed it on the commercial side, but GCC has it in preview now.
Yeah, that rolled out a few months ago, I believe 3 to 4 months ago. And we might have just touched over it briefly because it's not anything that, because we normally focus on more collaboration type of things, right? We kind of announce those feed capabilities and how you can make your video a little bit better or your audio. But we tend to focus more on how you actually use Teams and how you collaborate with people. I think that's why.
It's funny, people who watch this who have said, we really appreciate what we're doing, blah, 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 lots of good information. Like even I'm missing things. It's just, as you mentioned, they're continuously announcing so much that like to be able to stay on top of everything is insane. So, but that's, from a government perspective. Yeah. So from a government perspective, that's the majority of it. Now, there were a couple of other things specific to meetings which I thought were interesting. So live captions, we've talked about that in the past. There's a type of live caption called communication access real-time translation, or CART. That is a new live captioning format available in commercial and GCC, so simultaneous release on that. And then also the anonymous user join policies, which allows IT or central admins to say these groups of users can invite anonymous users while others can't. So a little bit more granularity in that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, definitely the captioning. It's all about Microsoft recently has been, in a good way, all about accessibility. So that definitely the CART
Yep.
communication access real-time translation, again, just for anybody who missed it, is important and is a great feature. And then I agree with the anonymous join. We're always looking, I always get those requests, right? So anything that comes out, somebody wants to know how you can do it a little bit more granular, because there's always different requirements from different groups inside the organization.
Now the other
one of the things that I thought, what?
No, go ahead and hit it.
One thing I thought was interesting was the content from camera in Teams. So basically allows us to share content from physical whiteboards or documents as almost like they were being broadcasted from our camera, right? So
yes,
they are cleaner images, and then I think we can like stream them and crop them.
Yep.
And kind of overlay them and do a bunch of neat things with them.
Yeah, so we've talked about the whiteboard enhancements. I think last month there was a bunch of whiteboard enhancements for virtual whiteboards, but the example that's in that should be playing right now, frankly, if I do my editing properly, the example is actually taking a whiteboard and streaming that whiteboard live in your meeting, as if it's a virtual whiteboard. So I'm really excited to see. Really excited to see what else comes with that that technological growth. That's really slick. So from a meetings and calling perspective, the only other thing I wrote down, and I thought this was really funny, was so they've released a custom hold music thing for calling with a bunch of caveats as to when it doesn't work, but you can only upload one audio file. So that audio file either needs to be like super extensive with, like a whole album worth of music, or it's one song and you just listen to that one song over and over again. And so I was thinking, Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, like, should absolutely be the hold music. If I had a tenant that I was doing this for, I think that's what I would do.
I was going to American Pie because it was longer. So that's
fair. That's fair. Of course, there's always Disney's Small World, which would make me quit my job, or The Song That Never Ends. Just a few fun pieces. Of course, totally.
You don't like
not
Small World?
Average feature here, but I just thought that was really funny.
No, it's pretty interesting. But I imagine that they'll just that's for a limited time, and they'll improve on that, and then they'll have the whole Muzak studio that you'll need to have. But yes.
Now, before we jump into the big announcement from Ignite, let's just real quick on the chat and collaboration side. Again, not a lot of new features, but I thought this was really interesting. I noticed a new search results page for the search within Teams, which I do like it, but. And with that, this top hit cape concept where you search for the word, you search for Anthony and it gives you the top likely things based on some AI algorithms. So I thought that was really interesting. But what really bothered me is at my company for our sales stuff, we use threaded channel discussions where each channel discussion relates to an opportunity, a sales opportunity. And we name the channel discussion using the title the same as we name it in CRM. So if I have a records opportunity for the Department of Interior, that name and title in CRM matches the name and title in this thread, and I can't find it anymore. So I can no longer search by the subject line as a filter, and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I didn't know until you told me about that was even a thing. So didn't bother me at all. But I am so horrible when I search anything. It's just like, what was that word that I put in somewhere? Um, Maybe it's horseshoe, right? And I'll do a search for horseshoe and hope
Sure,
everything. Yeah, hope
sure.
something comes back. Then I'll do a search for horse and space shoe, and then and I'll do
Exactly.
horseshoes. And so
So
I need the
more
AI that
filter
reads my
options, the
mind,
better.
but.
And while I like
I
this,
do like that it comes back now, kind of. Um, you see the chats, you see files, so it's kind of broke out too.
yep,
So it's not all just a line of threaded stuff. So a little bit cooler with that.
yep.
That's helped me a lot.
Yeah, so it is a enhanced search experience with positive benefits, but just that one, like, this is why people don't like cloud technologies and software as a service, is you never know what's going to change, and then when it does change and they take a feature away for whatever reason, of course you're upset, right? So here I am, I'm moaning
They
about that.
moved your cheese, I get it.
Yeah, they did move my cheese. So speaking of cheese, we'll move on to the big announcement from Ignite, which is the announcement of Microsoft Loop. And I'll have a link in the description here that goes directly to some of the big information about it. Loop is really interesting to me in that um, I don't think in and of itself today it is a big deal, but I think in the future what it provides has a lot of opportunity. Um, so yeah, I Loop could be very interesting.
Yeah, so it's basically a build off of, or an extension. Not really sure how you would say it. A while ago, Microsoft talked about having apps that would take information that would be able to be used not only in like Teams, but it would be able to be used in Outlook, in OneNote, and be able to be used SharePoint, and be able to use across the stack and save information. So you could create information, and then it'd be updated anywhere that you have use to that app, and they called that was part of the Fluid framework, and
Yes.
that has evolved more into a standalone product that they announced at Ignite called Loop, which is
Yep.
what you referenced to. So they're still in the process of kind of rolling out the full app, I think, or in its entirety, and we've just got little pieces like tables and
Yeah.
some other pieces of it now. But the promise there, I think, for those components to become bigger, better, and more ingrained in the system will be really cool. And then we were talking off camera how right now it's just for first party Microsoft apps, but the envision is, and the promise is, in Build, there's going to be, and Build is the big developer conference that will be coming up in a few months, to make it available to third parties. So allow third party development so other developers can put it into their own applications. And then
Yep.
that's where you could really get huge.
Yeah, exactly. So today's work capabilities are adding these live components into like a Teams chat or a channel thread. And there's some interesting stuff there, like you can have a live editable table in your discussion, and that same table can be placed in a Dynamics 365 page or application. It can be placed in OneNote or in exchange in an email. And the nice part about that is if I edit it in Teams and you're looking at it in an email a week later, you're getting the updates and you're able to edit
Yes,
it
that'd be awesome.
live. So some really cool co-authoring stuff there across all those apps. But like you said, I mean, I can start to see the vision when I think about apps like ServiceNow, or even our own apps for governance and for not backup for governance, being able to use these live components and really start to integrate across our app to Exchange to Teams to a downloaded file. It's got some really interesting potential, but again, I think it's a potential right now. Like I don't think they announced the mind-blowing feat capability today. I think they announced the teaser today, and hopefully the mind-blowing capability hits
Yeah,
up
the
in
vision for
at
it.
Build. Yeah. Exactly.
So,
One thing I thought was really interesting that kind of threw me off was, in order to make sure you have access to this offline, like in an email or something, they're actually going to be storing a file related to each thing in your OneDrive. So I'm curious from a governance perspective, how does that affect access and how does that affect sustainability? If I delete the file in my OneDrive, is the component lost on the internet or just for my local copy? And if I go to share, am I going to have the ability in OneDrive to change access to it? So I think that's really a little confusing still. Don't know.
yeah, I haven't fully looked in that. It wouldn't be surprising to me if that was more of a hidden file,
Sure.
or a hidden folder. If it were me, I'd probably try to make it that or something that you specifically have to go in and change. Just spitballing here and throw my own thing on here. Something that you specifically have to do special permissions for.
Right.
I don't know that we have that ability in OneDrive. Like, I know we do it in Exchange all the time. So like for e-discovery
Yep.
and content searching and the chat and Teams, there's a bunch of things,
It's in
bunch of
a
hidden folders that a
private folder.
user
Yep.
doesn't see but lives behind the system. I'm not really sure we do that in OneDrive, but it would be something that we could look into deeper. We could have a whole probably episode on Loop
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. I
future.
suspect, especially if not in the next month or two, coming out of build, we probably will. Even if it's more technical, I think it's worth diving into a little bit more detailed. The other, and this is my Uncle Ben moment, right? Like, this is a tool with a lot of potential, power, but with great power comes great responsibility. For example, don't send a sales quote to a customer that's using a loop component where you can change the value. And they look at the value today and then you edit it and they look at the value a week from now and it's different. Like, that's just bad form. That's so I think there's going to be some technical governance like we just
Well,
talked
that's
about,
an
but
interesting
some,
scenario
like,
because I don't know that you're going to be able to send an email to a customer. I would think that would almost be internally where Loop could be used.
so that's a great question I haven't been able to find an answer to. Is, can you send a loop component to someone external? And if I forward an email that you sent me that had a loop component in it, and I forward it to someone outside the domain, what happens to that content? Do they get just a placeholder that says, this is a loop component, come learn about them, but you can't access it? Or how does that work?
Yeah, that would be my guess. So again, I wasn't prepared for this conversation, and it's just
No, no,
kind of
no, no,
coming up
no,
on
no,
the
no.
fly. But my
I don't know
guess
if
it
it
would
makes
be you
sense.
have to log in, right?
Yeah, that's
So if you're a guest in that tenant, that would make sense, right? Then you would be able to see it. So you probably have to have some authorization. And then if you're not a guest in that tenant, like if I send it to you, you're a guest in my tenant, you can see it. But then if you forward it to somebody who I haven't shared it with, then obviously the permissions shouldn't hold.
right, right,
And
right,
then
right, right.
probably you would
I
see
mean,
that placeholder
logically,
of
that all
either
makes
you need
sense.
to,
Yep.
yeah. Well, there we go. We've got a whole new other episode lined up.
Sometime in the near future, or maybe somewhat more distant future. All right. Well, that's it for November, man. It was, like I said, it was a light month. Some updates to GCC, GCC-High, and DoD that we've seen in commercial before. A few things on meetings. A little Rick Astley, and then Microsoft Loop. That was Teams in a nutshell.
Yeah, so really a huge big announcement for Loop that's coming to Teams or already actually built into Teams with the Fluid framework and just kind of fully announced as being its own product, which was interesting. And then we had turkey we had turkey, we had gravy, we had stuffing. We didn't talk about that at all. And then so far
We
this
didn't.
month I had the Nutcracker Ballet and I had a cheerleading competition I had to go to today. So
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
we've got band rehearsal, or Christmas band or holiday band Tuesday, and then my other daughter's got orchestra and band on the following week, and we've got SharePoint. What do they call
365.
it? EduCon. 365
Educons coming to DC. So if you're in the DC area, if you want to meet Craig and I, come to our book signing. I mean, come to the conference. Use code LEASK for like $1 discount, and yeah, come join us. It'll be nice to see some people in person with a mask on.
Have you ever watched the Dick Van Dyke Show?
I mean, many years ago.
I believe in their Christmas episode, they had like one where they were singing, come join us, come join us. They were playing a band. You have to see it. Never mind.
I'm going to have to believe you on this one, Craig. And I think with that, I bid you adieu, my friend.
We know you liked this episode of This Week in Teams because you're still listening. So if you want to hear more like this, make sure you click the subscribe button, notifications, and go to onthespot.tech for more from This Week in Teams and our sibling podcasts.